session started here. For the ones of you that are new with us, as you can see, there has been the Board of Aldermen a couple of months ago called for a speaker system that we have got. So I hope this will be a little bit better for you to hear and understand. We have got, we're not complete with everything just yet, but kind of a new way that we're doing business, and each councilman will need to push the button before they're ready to talk. We've got it set on where you can talk about 3 or 4 at a time. Also, if you go to the podium, we ask you to push the button on the podium, or push the button on the box on the podium that has been installed by Televic and Covenant Communications. And we think this will be a good way to do business. If you notice, in the back of the room on the roof and in behind me, you'll see 2 cameras that are inactive at this time, but they will be active for the next meeting, and we will be able to live stream our meetings on www.cityoflivingston.net, if you see on the screen. So that's where we are, and this is to better serve the public and to better have communications. And like I said, so the speakers and the 2 speakers in the seatings, I don't know is hooked up at this time as well, that is sitting in the audience. So, but we tested them, didn't think we could hear them. Greg, can you hear them above your head?
You're coming through loud and clear.
Oh, okay.
Very clear.
All right. So, Danny, can you hear them?
Sounding good.
Right above your head, can you hear? Okay. Well, they are working then. All right. So, didn't know if they was on or not. So that's kind of how the system works, and it's only as good as you allow the system to work. So I ask each councilman, and let's do this in a professional manner. And there is a button directly in front of you that allows you to engage in the conversation and talk back and forth to the council or to the podium, however it is. So at this time, I will introduce the Buxton group. Mr. Rob Miller, which flew in, I think, from Chicago, Illinois today. Is that?
Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth, Texas. I got it completely wrong. Come on up, Rob. I don't know how I got Fort Worth and Chicago mixed up, but a huge difference. So,
both beautiful cities. Excellent. Well, I appreciate the introduction. Mayor Hayes, I know you and I, we met at the Tennessee Municipal League conference over the summer, and you just kind of shared a little bit with me about economic development, that there was a growing desire to refocus on supporting the existing business community, but also working to attract new businesses to the community. So we talked for a few minutes. I shared some of our experience that we've accumulated over the past 15 years, having worked with over 900 cities across the country. I think it was back in September that I had actually come out to a downtown committee over the Chamber of Commerce, and we talked mainly on supporting existing businesses, but also on attracting new businesses to some key corridors you guys have around town. So I thought tonight would be a great opportunity to introduce Buxton to those of you that may not be familiar with us. Hopefully open up the floor for a couple of questions, continued conversation, but really focus in on economic development, and specifically within economic development, retail recruitment and business retention. So the company that I work for, Buxton, we are a family-owned, family-run company out of Fort Worth, Texas. We've got 150 employees, and we are a consumer analytics company. Now, many of you may not have spoken to a consumer analytics company before, but our business is helping our clients to understand their customers better. And within the public sector, we help communities to understand their citizens as consumers. Understand who lives here and who works here, to incorporate that into your broader economic development strategy. Now, we're most well known for this in the public sector, but it's really because of our foundation and the track record of success we've accumulated over the past 25 years in the private sector that we've been able to be so successful working with communities. So I mentioned we're a consumer analytics company. What we do is we help retailers put their customers at the center of their business strategy. We help retailers to make multi-million-dollar site selection decisions based on their customers. Now, we're a company that was founded by retailers for retailers. So our CEO, Tom Buxton, he actually used to work with Radio Shack, so the Tandy Corporation. This is back in the early 90s when Radio Shack was still doing great business. So Tom Buxton, he was in charge of site selection for Radio Shack. So every single year he was tasked with going out and opening excellent locations. Right, so every single year, Tom would do that based on location and demographics. I'd find me a corner intersection with high traffic counts, good median household income, good population density, a mall with good foot traffic. Check those boxes, that's going to be a great Radio Shack location. Well, every single year, Tom would open 5 or 6 good locations, 2 or 3 okay locations, and then there'd always be those 2 to 3 underperformers. So Tom started to think, if I could only just open average locations, right? Home run locations are great, but if I could just avoid those underperformers, that was going to be a game changer. Tom founded Buxton to put science behind the art of site selection. He flipped the site selection industry on its head from a retailer's perspective by getting retailers to think not location, 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 but getting retailers to think customer, customer, customer. You could have the best piece of real estate in the nation, but if your customers aren't in close proximity, it's not going to be successful. I think about your community, right? You have certain types of folks that live here and that work here. If a retailer came in and your residents, your workforce aren't one of their customers, no matter how many incentives you try to put in front of that retailer, they're not going to be successful. They're going to come in and they're going to open their doors, and then a couple of years down the line, they may end up closing. And that's going to be worse than having attracted that retailer in the first place. So we get retailers, in our experience that you see in front of you, we've worked with about 3,000 different brands. So we're the company that Marriott Hotels turns to tell them where do they open their next hotel, what flag do they plant, is it a Courtyard, an AC, a Spring Hill, how many rooms and how many floors. Zaxby's, Bojangles, Jersey Mike's, At Home, Fidelity Investments, New Balance sneakers, FedEx, all these brands lean on us because of the expertise we have of helping retailers to understand their customers. Now, about 15 years ago, we started working in the public sector. We didn't necessarily set out to start working in the public sector. Tom didn't sit down in a boardroom and say, let's go start working with local government. Like many things at Buxton, it actually arose out of a need. So back 15 years ago, we were working with Dave & Buster's. Dave & Buster's entertainment concept, if you guys aren't familiar with them, there was a community in North Texas that really wanted a Dave & Buster's. They had a void from an entertainment standpoint. They kept hearing from their residents, their constituents, we need more entertainment options. So they kept reaching out to Dave & Buster's. We love your brand. We think you'd be a great fit. Come to our market. Well, Dave & Buster's, they turned around and they said, hey, we're working with a market validation firm, Buxton, and they've identified that you guys aren't ready for one of our locations, so unfortunately we're not coming. Well, that community turned around and they said, who the heck are these guys at Buxton that are telling Dave & Buster's not to come to our community? So for us, that's where the light bulb went on. We knew Dave & Buster's was not a fit for that community. We also knew they had a void and a desire to attract more entertainment concepts. Would we be able to use our expertise from site selection with retailers to help that community fill that void from an entertainment standpoint, to help that community to understand, if not Dave & Buster's, what concept would be a good fit in our community? Essentially, that's what we've done for the past 15 years with over 900 communities across the country, is help them to understand what is that lens that a retailer puts on it. Right? How do we focus in on a sustainable approach to attracting new businesses? So it's not cannibalizing our existing businesses, our local businesses. It's not reshuffling sales. It's getting the right mix of retail. It's creating net new sales. So we take an analytical, data-driven approach to helping communities to lay the foundation for who they are, and create a sustainable economic development strategy to move forward and attract the right types of businesses. Now, because of the work we've done both on the public and the private side of our business, we've been recognized. So I share this because when communities think about putting their name out there on the national stage, it's important who you associate your community with, who you associate your brand with. We've been recognized. Fast Company voted us to the Fast 50 list. The National Retail Federation recognized our CEO as one of the most influential people shaping retail's future. ICMA, International City Managers Association, leans on us for continued education programs for city managers. So we've built the experience over the past 25 years, and if given the opportunity, I'm very confident that we can help you guys to execute your vision from a retail development standpoint. Now, that I've walked through some of the background of who we are, let me just quickly get into how we actually help communities to focus on attracting new businesses. So we take a two-pronged approach. That's identifying what retail should be here, but is currently not, and then helping you to create a proactive strategy to go out and engage with those specific decision makers with retailers. Now, we don't want to just focus on attracting new business and forget about your existing businesses, so we focus in on business retention as well. We want to arm your local business owners with the information and the tools to help them attract more customers, to help them capitalize on the rising tide of development that will come to your community. Now, the first step to getting you to think like a retailer is getting you to understand your citizens as consumers. So we look at a couple of key indicators in a market to start matching communities to retailers that will be successful and that do locate in markets like yours. Right, so if we just looked at one of these specific variables by itself, that's not going to tell the complete story. It's through the combination of who lives here, where customers are located, and then the factors on the ground that we're able to create a thumbprint for your market. Right, so we take this thumbprint and we match it to the world of retail. Oftentimes I talk with communities and, especially, folks like you, Mayor, maybe it's a city manager, a member of council, and they hear from constituents, from residents, why don't we have this particular business? Why isn't that restaurant in town? Why isn't that, grocery store in town? And the position that you're in is you can't do much more than speculate, right? You can't do much more than say, well, that person's never coming, or, yeah, I think we should be spending our time and resources to go out and recruit them. We cut through that by matching you to retailers that are looking for the type of market that you guys present and are looking for the types of customers that you have. So how we do that is we get you to understand your residents far beyond basic demographic information. So think age, income, marital status. Right? When a retailer comes in and they see two individuals up on the screen, they look exactly the same from a age standpoint, an income standpoint, and marital status, right? That doesn't really tell a retailer, is this individual going to shop in my store or are they going to dine in my restaurant? That's not actionable. We get down to the household level on over 115 million households to be able to reveal how somebody behaves as a customer, how they live their lives, how they spend their money. So every single day, you and I as consumers, we willingly leave behind a trail of information about how you live your life and how you spend your money. All right, think about myself this morning. I jumped in my car, swiped my credit card at the gas station, jumped on the highway, went through a couple of tolls, my credit card hit on that. I jumped on a plane, went to the car, checked into a hotel. I've left behind a trail of information about who I am as a customer. Right? You think about you go to the grocery store or you go to your local pharmacy. Right? At the grocery store, chances are when you get a coupon after you check out, it's going to be for a product that you've either purchased in the past or you have a very high propensity to purchase in the future. We are the largest aggregator of that type of information. So it allows me now not to just have two individuals demographically, but now I've got Steve and I've got Jim. Right? They're very different consumers. Steve is very, very health conscious. Right? Steve works out a couple of times a week. He shops in the local organic grocery store. He's very, very health conscious. Whereas Jim lives a sedentary lifestyle. Jim eats quick serve dining a couple times a week, doesn't cook at home. He's a Netflix subscriber. Now think about this from the perspective of a retailer. If you were a sporting goods or an outdoor store or a vitamin shop, which one of these two individuals are you going to care about? You're going to want to know, where are all the Steves located in this market? Steves are my customers. Jim, despite looking the same demographic, Jim's not my customer. I have the ability for every single retailer out there in the nation to come in and show how many of their best customers are located in a given market. Right, so I can, instead of reaching out to a retailer and say, hey, we love your brand, we think you'd be a good fit, you can still tell that story, but you can say, not only do I think, I know this is a great market for you. You haven't even come and checked out the amazing downtown that we have. Right, so you start building upon that story to tell to a retailer. Now, the other piece of that is retailers want to know, where's my competition? What other businesses are located on the ground? Right? What does ingress, egress look like? What does parking? What do road networks look like? What does area draw factor into this? We factor all of that in, and we match communities to a list of retailers. So this is the tip of the iceberg of a partnership with us. We don't position ourselves from a transactional standpoint. We act as a consultant, an extension of the staff of communities that we work with. About 20% of the portfolio of communities we work with right now, so we work with about 85 to 95 communities, about 20% of those fall into the same type of population bucket that you guys are into. So I know communities your size, you don't have huge economic development teams, right? You have people that are probably wearing multiple hats. We want to be an extension of your staff. So we position ourselves to cut through the guesswork, identify the right retailers, and then sit with you to go out and tell your compelling story. Right? So it's not just Mayor Hayes reaching out to a retailer hoping that they're of interest. He's reaching out with a full team of 150 economic development experts and a company he can point to that says, Buxton says this is a good fit. So once we match communities to retailers, that's where the process really starts. We help you to go out and tell a compelling story by arming you with technology and an account management team to sit behind you. From a technology standpoint, we arm you with our platform Scout. So for each retailer we match you to, we're going to assemble the specific information for that brand, who the key decision maker is, and be able to visualize that information, send it to them in email, sit down in a conference room, talk through where their customers are located. So you have the same exact platform that all of our retailers use to select sites. This platform is also where we focus on supporting your existing business owners. So we don't want to just attract new retail, like I said before, we want to help those local businesses. So we do that by helping them to understand their customers, right? Who lives here, who works here, right? How can they tweak their product offerings? How can they make shelf allocation decisions? Right, so the story I always like to tell about how we can help local businesses. Think about if you had a hardware store owner, right? That hardware store is doing excellent business, they've got excess capital, they're trying to think, should I open a second location or should I expand my product offerings? We can help that hardware store owner to understand, no, maybe not a second location, the market's already saturated in the category you're in. Maybe you should think about using that excess capital to expand your product offerings. Well, they start thinking, I've got the back wall of my business that's open, and we start looking through some data and we say, look, there's an opportunity from an electronics and a home appliance standpoint. We land on there is a high discretionary spend when it comes to electronics. We land on that people in your market are prone to purchase the latest and greatest televisions, and they decide that they're going to stock that back shelf of the hardware store with big screen TVs. I can go all the way down to the point where I say what price points and what specific brands people prefer in your market. Is it Sony? Is it Hitachi? Is it Toshiba? Right? So we can put actionable information in a local business owner's hand, but not only are we going to do that, we provide a tool to help local businesses actually get out and tell the story and reach customers to attract them to their business. We provide communities access to LSMX, Local Store Marketing Powered by Buxton. This has all of our data and analytics loaded up into it, and it is basically, so in the example you see, it's kind of small, but that is a bike store. They've entered information that says, this is my store, this is my website, I sell bicycles. And LSMX will create a map of your market, and it will show every single household that looks like somebody that would shop in that bike store. They can circle those households on the map. So in that example, you can't see it, but it's circled about 3,500 households. Of those 3,500, 1,500 look like customers. And then they can go out and run targeted advertisements just to those households through 5 different channels. So direct mail, email, Facebook, Google search, and AdWords, right? So not only if that hardware store owner puts those big screen TVs on the back of his shop, now when he has that opening weekend special, he can hit people on, when they go to USA Today, they'll see an ad for a locally targeted ad for that individual's business, an email, a Facebook advertisement. So something that we're really excited about, putting power back in local business owners' hands to tell a compelling story to the right types of customers. Now, the last piece of the puzzle is our account management support. We'll sit with you guys through every step of the process. We want to be your consultant. We want to help you out from an economic development standpoint. To recap, we've been successful working with communities because of our retail background. Right? We've spent 25 years working with some of the most aggressive brands that are out there to select sites, to make multi-million-dollar decisions. We have that background and experience. When it comes to data, the breadth and depth of data that we have access to, there's nobody else out there that can compete with us. When you look at it from a technology standpoint, we're going to put that technology in your hands through our Scout platform, and then we're going to support you through that process. So my hopes today was really just to give you guys a better understanding of who we are. I know that retail, from both a supporting local businesses, attracting entrepreneurs, and new retail is an area of focus. Should you guys, focus on that as part of your upcoming budget, I would love the opportunity to work with your community. I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to be out here this evening, and would love to open up the floor for any questions or continued conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Has anyone got questions for Mr. Miller?
Yeah, never mind.
Just push the button.
Mr. Miller, thank you for being here. Could you briefly describe how your firm gets compensated for your services?
Yep, so we, like I said, we position ourselves as a consultant, so it's not a one-time transaction. We work on an annual basis with communities. We want to ensure that people understand retail does not happen overnight, right? It's a process. Most of the clients that we work with on the private side of our business, they already know every single location up until about November this year that they're opening. So if you guys start talking to folks, it's going to take 6, 7, 8 months. Now, we have had communities that have landed somebody in 3 months, but so we position ourselves to be there throughout conversations. So we operate on an annual basis. When we engage with the community, we'll put a multi-year partnership out there. That is going to secure pricing for you, and it is also going to, have that longer-term outlook. Now, we've been working with local governments for 15 years. I know it is very difficult for folks to commit future funds. So the way that we do that is we give you the opportunity on an annual basis to sit down as a council, whatever decision-making body it is, and say, look, did everything Rob said when he was out here, did Buxton hold up their end of the bargain? You're able to look internally and say, were we prepared to make the best use of this partnership? And so on an annual basis, you're able to decide if you would like to move forward to additional periods of that partnership.
You had said that y'all represent community, about 20% communities our size. Would we be able to contact some of those and talk to them about how they feel about your services and so forth?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest question I get is exactly that, right? I mean, from your standpoint, your position to be that barrier between for the effective use of public funds, right? So every community I talk to, I urge them to go through a full diligence process, talk with clients that we've worked with, talks with folks that in other states, in Tennessee. So absolutely, I'll be providing references to you guys to go out and talk to.
Thank you.
With all due respect, I still have no further idea of what type of compensation you would need from a city like our size to engage with you.
what he's asking you, what's the price tag?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So,
I think my question's pretty clear.
typically what that looks like is you're gonna fall somewhere, it depends on the specific goals and objectives that we come to, that is gonna be the focus of your community, but typically you're looking right around the ballpark of a $50,000 investment.
Never per year?
Correct.
And in return, you know, of course, we have some economic tools that we use from time to time. I've got Ray Evans, which is chairman of our Downtown Revitalization Committee. I think you're familiar with him. Greg McDonald, Chamber Executive Director. So we have seen those saying the puppet show, and we've seen the strings. Okay, so what exactly for that $50,000 is the city of Livingston going to get? Because I know that I've talked to Greg and Ray, and we've met on this before. We've got a lot of data, and we just don't want to be covered up in a lot of data. Those saying is we want to see action, and you're right. I think that everyone in this room has had the question proposed to them, why don't we have this and why don't we have that? Sure we have. $50,000 is a lot of money for this small community. I'm glad you come. I invited you to come, so don't think I'm beating you up. But I think that it's important that everyone knows exactly for that annual fee of $50,000, exactly what we're going to get.
Yep, so you are correct, $50,000 is not a drop in the bucket, right? There is a reason why I describe it as an investment, right? From a direct payout standpoint, think about from a tax revenue standpoint, right? The county collects 2.5% sales tax. I'm sure a portion of that is distributed back. I'm sure a portion of that, I don't know exactly what that is. But think about, average unit volume. Somebody like a Chick-fil-A, and I'm not saying Chick-fil-A is going to come here, but I just know it off the top of my head. They're typically right around $4 million average unit volume. 2.5% of $4 million is about $100,000 every single year that Chick-fil-A is open. All right, so the goal for us is not just to attract one business to your market. Ahoskie, North Carolina, 5,000 population, we help them to attract 7 different retailers. No interstate going through, I barely got cell phone service when I went out there. We helped convince Walmart to build a supercenter, then we filled the Walmart, we split that box up, and we filled it with 2 other retailers. All right, so absolutely, $50,000 is going to require due diligence from your end to consider, right? But we have the track record of going out there and helping communities on an annual basis to go out there. We had a community run an independent study that found that for every dollar they invested in Buxton, they got a $91 return on that investment. So what you are actually going to get when you partner with us, there's the application, there's the great information we're going to put out in front of you. You're going to get somebody that is going to empower you to realize your economic vision from a retail recruitment standpoint. You're not outsourcing this solely to us. We are working in tandem with you, and we're going to sit with you. We're going to put you in the best light possible in front of the right retailers. We're going to sit in conference calls with you. We're going to do everything possible to tell a compelling story to your market. I never sit up here and I will never promise a community, hey, we're going to get you a grocery store, we're going to get you a sit-down restaurant, because there's so many other variables that ultimately decide if somebody's going to come to your market. So what I do promise communities is that we're going to match you to the right retailers, we're going to sit with you throughout the process, and we're going to do everything possible to advocate as to why that retailer should be in your market.
Thank you. Well, I don't think Mr. Miller is looking for an answer tonight. Obviously, this is a work session, so this is a non-voting session. So, but he is here to answer any and all questions if you have any for Mr. Miller. Ken brought up the references. I haven't had a chance to look at all of your packet. Is references available in this packet, or?
No, so I will provide you, I can provide you when I get back to my office, a list of folks, email addresses and phone numbers that you can feel comfortable reaching out to.
Thank you.
Would you know, which How many municipalities or cities in the state of Tennessee you worked with?
Historically, over the past 15 years, we've probably worked with about 25. Right now, the closest person we're working to you guys is Sevierville. We're also working with Memphis. That's a little bit different project. So we work with some larger cities from a little bit different angle than we do, because they have different goals than somebody like you guys. So historically, we've worked with about 25. I'd say Sevierville is probably not the closest in distance to you guys, not necessarily saying that market is the same as you.
Thank you.
What type of retailers are you seeing coming into towns of our size?
So retail's absolutely changing. Retailers are getting smarter about the way they select sites, and there's a growing number of retailers that want to be the big fish in a small pond, right? So you guys have you have retailers that have chosen to locate in the market already. You have some retailers that have probably come in here recently, right? So obviously, one of the fastest growing retail categories that's out there is folks like a Dollar General, right? Now, a lot of communities I talk to, they don't need help. They don't want to go out and attract a Dollar General. So that's one of the things that we do, is we make sure the people we're going after is the people that you guys want. But so, I can't necessarily point to one specific retailer that is coming into smaller markets. Quick serve, casual dining. Casual dining is difficult. It depends on the amount of daytime population. That's something. So I really try to stay away from talking about anything to do with specific categories, because we spend about 2 months' time studying all the data. Right? So I can point to communities your size that we have helped to attract retail to. I can't specifically point to any resellers at this point that I think will be a good fit for your market.
Any other questions for Mr. Miller? Okay, Mr. Miller, thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate the flight in from Fort Worth, Texas. Got it right this time, right? Okay, well, the council will take a look at this maybe during budgeting time and see if this is something they would like to possibly entertain. And if they need you to come back, I will give you a call, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you guys very much for the time.
Absolutely. Have a safe trip back to Nashville.
This is gonna take a little bit to get used to.
Okay, we have a public hearing now for the heavy truck traffic ordinance that was voted on last monthly meeting, and it's up for the second reading today. Is there anyone here that would like to discuss the heavy truck traffic ordinance? Anyone here that would like to discuss the heavy truck ordinance? Ray, can you tap that mic? Thank you. All right, thank you, Ray. If no one here is discussing, anyone had any calls on it? Any board members had any calls? Okay. Darius, have you, Chief Etheridge, have you had any calls on this heavy truck ordinance? Okay. Okay, if it's, we'll bring the public hearing to a close, and we will start our monthly meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. If you would, please stand for the prayer. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and all the many blessings, Lord. We thank you once again for giving this council the opportunity to come out and participate in local government. Lord, we pray that we do everything in accordance with thy will. We pray for our country and the leaders of our country that they will always be a God-fearing country, do everything in thy will to serve thee. Pray for our sick, especially the ones that we know and are close to us. If it be thy will, Lord, you put them back to their much wanted help. For the families that have lost loved ones, we ask you to comfort them as only you know how. Forgive us of our sins. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Chief Etheridge, you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, everyone is present. Need a motion to approve the minutes of last month's meeting.
Move approved.
Motion made by Alderman Langford,
Second.
second by Alderman Dishman. All for the motion, let know, saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. As you all have seen, we have got a new microphone system that has been requested by the city council. So this was installed by Televic and Covenant Communications System. So it is to better serve the community and especially the folks out in the audience. If you notice on the ceiling behind me and maybe behind where you're sitting, there is two cameras that are inactive at this time. But we'll be the next city council meeting, and we'll be live streaming from www.cityoflivingston.net on demand. Again, they're inactive today, but the cameras are installed and ready to go as soon as all of the technical things are out of the way. So anyone that wants to speak tonight at the podium, we ask you to push the button that is located on the equipment in front of you. You just have to push it one time, and then when you're finished, just push it again and exit the podium. City Councilman, here we are asked to work this in a very professional way. The system is only as good as we make it. So, and so far, I believe it sounds okay out in the audience. So if you need to talk, and you can back and forth, push the button, and I think right now we've got it set up where 3 or 4 mics can be hot at the same time, okay? If we need more, we can do more. Okay. So the minutes is approved. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Mayor, just a question, the street lighting project that we had looked at, and they brought put up some samples. How soon do we need to readdress that now that we've had a chance to view those?
So we are meeting on February February 19th.
Okay.
We're going to address that February 19th, and what Kenny's talking about is that we are got a pilot program with UCMC on the LED lighting system. So there's some up around the Hillcrest area and also around Woodland Street and a couple on West Main there in front of the just past, I guess that'd be red light number 2, traveling south on Highway 111 in front of the Huddle House area. So you'll be able to see different lighting, and it does make a difference. So, but we will address that then. Is there any additions or deletions? I have one to add the Oakland Park property sales sorry, I forgot to put that on there. That is where there was remember there was a meth house over there, and we had a couple auctions. The first one didn't go too well, so that's that. So just need to accept the sale of that. If anyone,
How much was it?
well, I'll tell you that, we gotta put it on the agenda first. So if someone will make the motion motion made, Alderman Speck, you've got to hit your button.
I'll second.
I make the motion.
Motion made by Alderman Speck, seconded by Ken Dodson, to add that to the agenda, so that'll be number 10, Oakland Park property sales, to the agenda. Motion is second, any discussion? All for the motion, let me know, saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign, motion passes. So we will add that to number 10 on the agenda. So under old business, item number 1 is the second reading of the heavy truck traffic, and I think you see just then there's not been anyone that is called that has been in opposition. There has been folks that have contacted the city about loud noise late at night and things of that nature. Police department's not had any phone calls. Codes inspectors not had any phone calls. I've not had any. I don't think the board has any, so we just, if you're gonna take action, we'll take action on it this time.
You need a motion?
Yeah, I need a motion.
Motion to approve?
Motion made by Ken Dodson,
Second.
second by Alderman Speck. Any discussion? All for the motion, let it know, saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimous. Item number 1 under new business is downtown revitalization. Mr. Ray Evans.
Mayor and members of the board, 2 items for you tonight. As you look down your agenda, you'll see item number 6 is a letter from TDOT regarding the multimodal access grant application that we had submitted, and a letter that you have in your packet notifying the mayor and the city that we were selected for that grant program to the tune of just a little bit over $739,000. Recall that it's a 95/5 match grant, the lowest match ratio that I've seen anywhere. We're in the process of doing the preliminary paperwork with TDOT now. Go through the process with them, and then prepare contract documents that will then come back to the city to be executed. We're also in the process of selecting a design consultant, an engineer, to help us with the design and construction phase services for the project. There has been a notice to consulting engineers posted on the TDOT website, which is by far the best place for if you're trying to solicit a good turnout of consultants. Every engineering consultant in the state reads that website daily. We will receive letters of interest on February the 11th. We'll make a short list and then ask for full proposals from what's considered the best 3 firms. And those proposals would be due back March 1st. And through a committee selection process, we would hope to have a firm selected by March the 8th, go through negotiations with them on their price proposal and such, and how that will continue in your April Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Any questions on that? Yes,
Mr. Evans, I just want to thank you on behalf of myself and the entire council for your commitment and dedication to this project. I know that without you, our city would not have received the $739,000. Thank you very much. I do ask, however, could you just describe to our citizens what exactly this is going to do for our community, please?
sure. This grant program that is pedestrian oriented, certainly, and it with a preference of being on state routes or within a close vicinity of state routes. And in our case, it's a sidewalk improvement and replacement project on both sides of Main Street, both sides of East Broad, from the square, essentially down to the chamber. Where those old sidewalks have been, rashed on over them in places, some places they're broken up so badly you can't walk on them anymore. All of those all the existing ones get replaced with new sidewalks. And will also improve some drainage, conditions as we're doing, especially on the, what would that be, the, east side of East Broad, where the shops get flooded once in a while with drainage. We'll also do replace all of the dilapidated curbing around the courthouse square that you've seen has sprawled off and just a bit of other sidewalk here and there, but and we will be installing some new sidewalk on East Broad where it ends about Good Pasture on down past the bank down to the Chamber of Commerce.
That's fantastic news. So it may then be possible that we get the curbs around the courthouse repaired prior to TDOT coming in and resurfacing our square.
And actually,
since they didn't do it before.
A good point. I think we ought to ask TDOT to hold off on that resurfacing until we finish this project, because not only that, but the first block from the courthouse square down to Good Pasture would also be part of that resurfacing.
Right.
And so we don't want to booger up what they've just done with new construction.
So let's.
We'll talk.
Yeah.
We can talk to Paul Diggs or who?
I think
We'll talk.
I think we'll start with the next item that I have for you is some invoices. There are actually 3 in your package, and unless maybe you added the fourth one.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's 4 in your package. The first one is $25,000. That's the annual contribution to the chamber. That's part of the tax rebate program that was part of the way the program was set up initially. That there's a $25,000 fee to the chamber for grant administration and other efforts in that regard. We have 2 licensing fees that we need to renew with ASCAP and CSAC, I guess is the acronym. Those allow us to have the performances, both the musical performances and the movies in the park through the season. So the city actually possesses the licenses, and then they're used by whomever the folks using the park will be. The one that was added late in the process was an annual fee that we pay to participate in the state's Main Street program. And that fee is $300. So you also have, for your information on there, that our loan payment that's part of the tax rebate, sales tax rebate program will be due on June 1st, 2019. You see the amount $138,532.80. Typically, we pay that interest only in June, and then we pay the principal in November. But we have the option to do it any way we want to. For your approval tonight, though, I'm asking for approval of the $25,000, the $357,000, the $438,000, and the $300,000, and that would total $26,095.
Ray, I went ahead and threw that 138. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Speck.
It's only as good as we make it.
That's it. It's only as good as we make it.
Well, this 138 that we're talking about. Okay. The 138 that we was talking about, is that $500,000 that we was talking about doing Buena Vista and all that? Is that this 138 included in that, or is this different 138?
No, this is something that we approved a long time ago. This has to do with the park.
Right.
The grant comes in and takes care of that,
Okay.
takes care of the payment, but, I mean, we're just releasing the money from the funds, so yeah, it don't have anything to do with that.
Okay.
David, typically we take revenues that we get usually in September, October from the state, and we pay that loan amount out of those shared state sales tax revenues.
Overnight.
So the total I got is $164,677.80.
Could be.
Yeah, that's the total that, we came up with. So, and again, that is the payment, for the park that we've already, the grandstands for it, so. Need a motion.
Right. We have, now that's the money we paid last November too, on the same thing, that 138, we paid a percent last month. In November, I don't remember what it was right offhand, but that's the same thing we voted to pay,
Yes,
and we'll pay it again.
it's interest and principal on the loan that was taken out 8 or 9 years ago.
But it's in the fund already to do it, it's just we vote to do it once it comes in.
So, correct, we're just releasing those funds. These are not city's funds that we're spending. These are out of that downtown revitalization's rebate program.
Mr. Mayor, I move to accept the invoices to be paid that he's presented tonight.
Motion made by Alderman Kelly Coleman to, release $164,677.80, and pay the invoices and that goes on with the loan.
Second.
Second by Alderman Langford. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote, Ms. Phillips.
Alderman Johnson.
Yes. Yes.
Alderman Langford.
Yes.
Alderman Speck.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Williams.
Yes.
Alderman Cohen.
Yes.
We've got too many on.
Oh,
Go ahead, Alderman.
Yes.
Alderman Bushman.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right, we're getting there, folks. We're getting there. Yeah. And this, I'll go over that again. This is really for the general public. Again, when we start live streaming, so the general, public can watch on demand and be able to hear what they're seeing. So it's not necessarily to benefit us sitting up here, as much as it is for the audience and for the general public, so. All right, so that item passed. So item number 2 is Property Maintenance Code 13, Chapter 1, miscellaneous. Mr. Kelly Coleman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. In the effort of continuing to look at and update our property maintenance codes, we've asked the Envision Livingston Group to present tonight the next code, which is, I think, Chapter 13 miscellaneous. So I'm not sure who the representative is, but we'll call on you now.
This is a copy of the current code miscellaneous. I don't know if y'all have that or not.
Thank you.
Mayor and board, so we, this was the next code.
So what you need to do is just identify yourself, what group you're with, and your name and things of that nature. Thank you.
Sorry, this is my debut. My name is Hayden White. I am with Envision Livingston here, and we were asked by Mr. Coleman to come up and present the next chapter of the codes that we have presented to you. So this code, this section of the code is actually already voted into, it's already in the current municipal code. We found that the last time it was amended was 2000, and then the time before that was 1989. So, for example, just about 5 years before I was born. So we just thought that it was time to make some changes to bring it up to get the current code. So I'm gonna go through them briefly, and if you have any questions, just let me know. It's on page 1, underneath the health officer. The only change that was made there was to include that he or she can be privately contracted. Right now, the current health officer is Chief Greg Etheridge. And then on page 2, we've added into the 13-102 overgrown and dirty lots. We've included now that it is unlawful to have debris accumulate to where it can blow onto neighboring properties. And we've actually had somebody come up to one of our committee members and complain about this already, that one of their neighbors is letting trash and junk and all that accumulate onto their lot and it's blowing over. Yeah.
So have you you gave us the current code. Have you got the anticipated changes, the handout? Have you?
I know, it's already there, back in the pack.
In the back.
Was it?
Yeah, I thought it was.
I never did get one. Not the others.
You don't have the most current version? Is that what
Yeah, but.
okay, you're talking about changes instead of?
Yeah.
This is just a little cheat sheet I made for myself.
Okay.
I can pass it to you.
It's not.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Coleman's got one proposed.
Yeah. You got it. Yeah, yes.
Well, if it works, I can pass this around.
That's okay.
Okay.
I think what, let's go over this again. Start at the front page, that 13-101,
Okay.
the changes that you had.
Okay, so yeah, on the first page, the only change we have is underneath the health officer.
Okay.
So 13-101, and that is just that, we've added that they can be, or not be added that they can be privately contracted. And still right now, it's just pointed as a cheap beverage. So then on the next page, page 2 on 13-102, we've included, like I said before, it is unlawful to have debris accumulate to the point where it can blow onto your neighbor's yard. And on the next section there, under A and B, it is declared unlawful and a nuisance to permit weeds, trees, and vegetation, animals that is injurious or offensive to the comfort and safety of the public. And next on the section 2, so after the property has been identified to the health officer and he takes it to the board.
Okay, hey, you're going really fast.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, you're going really, really fast. All right.
It's my PR
So,
rating.
That's all right. Let's back up to 13-102,
Okay.
page 1.
Okay.
All right? I just want everybody to be on the same page. Okay. Hit it.
All right. So you're talking about overgrown and dirty
No,
lots?
our 13-102 is titled,
That's
that's the
it's the
current.
other code.
That's why they're old.
I think what you're doing is presenting the updates,
Mhm.
right? The
Yeah.
proposed, you're presenting proposed changes.
Mhm.
In a new proposed,
Yeah, you don't have the most current one?
You don't have the new one? Do y'all not have the new one?
Melissa
No.
sent it
That
to
was
us.
confused.
Well, I thought y'all had the new.
Yeah, it's the top with the inclusion of the proposed board.
That's why I didn't get it out to the agenda. So,
Yes, I know, but he-
yeah, let's make copies. We'll just make copies. It's just copies.
I have a couple of copies here.
Yeah, Bridget,
Copy.
Bridget. While she's making copies, let's come right back to, while she's making, thank you, Kenny.
Go back to the other item.
Yeah, so let's go back while Miss Bridget is making copies. Let's talk about the property, item number 3 is what we'll go to, is the property maintenance advisory committee. So, you all gave me a task of this, first. Let's pass this ordinance, ordinance to amend Title 13 of the Livingston Municipal Code to create a property maintenance board. 3, whereas there exists numerous properties within Livingston town limits that fail to comply with the property maintenance regulation enacted by the town, and whereas the board of mayor and aldermen has determined that an advisory board should be created to assist the public Livingston building official, public officer, health officer in determining which property violations should be subject to code enforcement action. Now therefore be ordained by the town of Livingston Board of Mayor and Aldermen that the property maintenance board be created and the Livingston Municipal Code be amended as follows. So this is the property maintenance regulations. I know that was in the agenda. So does anyone have any questions on that?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to simply remind folks and reiterate the reasons why I felt like that this was a new board to create. One, I think it's going to provide oversight to the ongoing property maintenance codes issues that that we're addressing accountability, enforcement consistency. I think it's gonna delegate the enforcement to a public body as opposed to all falling on you or Darius to have to enforce. It's gonna provide a record-keeping mechanism. I think this board's gonna report to the Board of Aldermen once a month or maybe once a quarter on any updates, things that are going on, violations that have been addressed, etc. I feel strongly that without enforcement, it's really worthless to have a lot of ordinances on the books, so I think we need that accountability piece, and I'm hoping that this will help us to achieve that.
Mr. Meadows is here, and he's took a look at this along with MTS, and, is there a few fill in the blanks here that we need to do, John?
There he is. You want me to go?
Yes, please.
First, the number of members needs to be determined, and then the ordinance should include the way that the members are going to be appointed, either by the mayor or the city council, or by the mayor with approval by the governor. So that needs to be determined as to how you're going to appoint the members, the number of members, and what kind of term, the length of term that each member would serve on the property maintenance board.
We already did that last time. Kelly did the 7 members, 25 mayor.
The only thing I think we didn't cover was their term of service. Is that gonna be all the same or staggered somehow, or how are we gonna figure that?
John, what we came up with was a 7-member board.
Okay.
One from BCA, one from planning, one from revision, one from Board of Aldermen, and 3 citizens.
So I think it should be like any other committee we have, like the planning commission, just like Kelly is the new alderman on that, so I think it should stay in the same realm of our other committees.
The way they work.
Yeah.
And the way they work, so they're appointed by me, but approved by the board. Yeah. Okay.
Is there a term?
Yeah, normally it's a 2 or 3 year term, how do y'all want to do that? Doesn't matter to
I
me.
propose 2 years.
Okay, motion made by Alderman Kelly Coleman to accept this document and make it a 2-year term on fill in the blanks. Also, the mayor appoints with the approval of the city council. I think that was all fill in the blanks. Is that correct, John?
That, in addition to the makeup of the board, that it shall consist of 1 member from the BZA, 1 member from the planning commission, 1 member from the board of aldermen, and then 4 members from the community.
One envision.
One envision Livingston, yeah,
And 3 from.
and 3 from city residents.
Yeah.
Okay, got a motion by Kelly Coleman. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Speck. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Ms. Phillips.
Alderman Langford,
No.
Alderman Speck,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wiggington.
Yes.
Alderman Coleman,
Yes.
Alderman Dishman,
No.
Alderman Dodson.
Yes. You're still on
Motion
roll.
passed.
Okay, motion passes. So the next, with your approval, the Property Maintenance Advisory Committee would be
Oh.
Barbie Roberts from the BZA, Ms. Matilda Speck from the Planning Commission, Mr. Ken Dodson from the Board of Aldermen, Mr. Mitchell White and Visual Livingston. Our city residents will be Mr. Randall Also, Ms. Angela Dixon, and Mr. Daniel Elder. That's the ones that I've talked to and have appointed to the committee, and then, if that's suffice, the board made a motion to accept that committee.
So moved.
Motion made by Alderman Kelly Coleman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Chris Speck. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Ms. Phillips.
Alderman Speck,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lingham.
Yes.
Alderman Coleman,
Yes.
Alderman Dishman,
No.
Alderman Dodson,
I'll abstain.
Alderman Langford.
No.
So you have, so there'd be 3 for the motion, 2 oppose the motion, motion passes. Okay, let's go back now to, Mr. Hayden White. Go ahead, Hayden, sorry about the
Very good, thank you.
confusion, but.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off with the old code. So it's, there we go. So this will be the one that is already in there. And so, most of the big items we've deleted. So on the first page, 13-102, the adulterated food, drugs, and cosmetics. And we weren't even sure really what that was, so we just took it out. And then, so that's it for the first page. And then nothing major has been taken off of the second page, so I can read you what has been taken off if you like. Okay, it's just 2 and 3 limitations on applications. And then on the next page, page 3, down toward the bottom on 13-104, we have taken out disturbing refuse containers. And we have also taken out 13-105, refuse collection vehicles. Pretty much says you can't mess with them. And then on the very last page, 13-107, my favorite, and I hope yours too, slaughterhouses. We've taken that one off.
Okay. Okay, does anybody have any questions for Mr. White? No, there was just a little confusion on that, and I did not have it in the packets, but the board can certainly vote on it, and there will be a, since we're doing amendments to the ordinance, there will be a public hearing on it and a second reading. And anything that board members would like to see change, we can do that, and then have a vote on the second reading that night.
And I also have additions to the code, so I can read those on as well.
Yes, please.
Okay. So, so this is the new code now, the one that you were just given.
Right.
Correct. Okay. So on page 1 of that one, that's the health officer, that's what the confusion was later. So on that one, that all we've added to that section is that the health officer can be privately contracted. And just for reference, Chief Eldridge is the current health officer. So then on page 2, so if you want to contract that one. So on page 2, 13-102, on the overgrown and dirty lots, we've added the unlawful accumulation of debris that can be blown over into a neighbor's yard. And then on following sections on A and B, we've added the sentence that is declared unlawful and a nuisance to permit weeds, trees, vegetation, and animals that is injurious and offensive to the comfort and safety of the public. And on the following section, number 2, in the current section we have now that's in the code, you have 10 days after, you have the property owner has 10 days to make compliance, and this code made that 15. Give them 5 extra days. And with that, if the property owner, if they cannot be reached, there will be 2 consecutive notices put in the newspaper for 2 consecutive issues, and a personal notice will be delivered to the resident.
Mr. White, I would like to ask that you read section 13-102, overgrown and dirty lots.
Okay.
We'll just read that. I think it's important. I understand that we're kind of hitting highlights, but I think it's important to really come back to the basics of what this is intended to do. What really is this a tool for this new board to be able to accomplish? I mean, what are the real things that we're trying to do here? I think it is helpful maybe just to read that section, please.
Okay. Alright, so I'll start from the beginning. I'll start from the beginning. So it is unlawful for any owner of record of real property to create, maintain, or permit to be maintained on such property the growth of trees, vines, grass, underbrush, and or the accumulations of debris, trash, litter, garbage, filth, or to allow the accumulation of debris which could be blown onto neighboring properties, or any combination of the preceding elements so as to endanger the health, safety, or welfare of other citizens, or to encourage the infestation of flies, rodents, vermin, or other harmful animals on premises such that the same is a menace to the public health or an annoyance of people residing in the vicinity. In addition to the foregoing, the following actions or inactions by any person within the town of Livingston hereby are declared to be unlawful nuisances. Shall I continue? Okay. For any person to permit or suffer weeds, trees, and or other vegetation to grow, or to allow trash to accumulate which is injurious to or likely to imperil the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the town of Livingston and the general public. For any person to permit or suffer any substance, animal, or thing to accumulate on his property, which substance is or is likely to become a public nuisance, or which is likely to imperil the health, life, or safety of any persons, or which through the giving off of odors or noises is or is likely to become offensive or injurious to the comfort or safety of residents and the general public, such nuisance may be abated, and the cost of the abatement shall be assessed against the owner of the property as stipulated in the manner prescribed in 13-102, parentheses 3.
Thank you, Mr. White. And I just want to point out that I've received a complaint from a citizen in one of the local neighborhoods that their neighbor is growing or herding livestock in their yard, and the smell is a nuisance to them. And so I think this is exactly the type of thing that this ordinance is going to address. That's going to come before the board, this new board. And this new board is going to have to decide, what do you do about it? All right? It's a balance.
Speaking from experience, when I was growing up, I had llamas next door, and I wasn't too fond of that.
Anyway, thank you for reading that.
And I lived in the city. Okay. So, and that was the major changes for section 13-102. So, if we would like to go to page 3, if there's any other questions. Okay. And that's pretty much a continuation. It's actually a continuation of 13-102. And it says that if the property owner does not meet compliance, the health officer can proceed to take necessary steps, which means if they don't do what has been presented to them, the health officer then has the right to go on and make that have that property meet compliance. After that is done, so after the health officer has done that, the property owner has 30 days to pay after the cleanup is performed. So in the old code, it skipped the 30-day period, so and it went straight to a lien. So in this code, we put a 30-day grace period after the cleanup has been performed. So and then after that 30-day period, or on December 31st of that given year, whichever one is later, the health officer notifies the town attorney and that property owner can be put up for suit for anything unpaid for what was done to their property. And owner-occupied properties can have a lien placed if the cost exceeds $500. And that's it for page 3. And on page 4, pretty much all of these are new. So 13 or new or been added. So 13-103, that is smoke, soot, and cinders. And I remember last year when we brought this up, somebody came up and asked if that meant they could not have a fireplace. That's not what this means. It just means that it becomes unlawful. So unless you're lighting up dynamite in there, you should be good. So 13-104 is stagnant water. And dead animals, which is 13-105, it was already in there, but we have added the sense that, you know, if the dead animal is not intended to be eaten, then it's unlawful for it to be on there. And then 13-107 is throwing, dumping, or depositing litter on your property, and the last one, 13-108, is weeds.
Mr. White, would you read 13-107, please?
Yeah. A person shall not throw, dump, deposit, or cause to be thrown, dumped, or deposited litter, which includes garbage, refuse, rubbish, and all other waste materials, on property owned by another person without the permission of the owner or occupant of such property, or on any town, street, or road, upon town parks or recreation areas, or upon any other town property within the corporate limits, except for property designated for that use. And that's all the deletions and changes that we've made. Any questions?
Would you also read 13-108?
Yeah. So 13-108 is weeds. It says every owner or tenant of property shall periodically cut the grass and other vegetation commonly recognized as weeds on his property, and it shall be unlawful for any person to fail to comply with an order to cut such vegetation when it has reached a height of over 1 foot.
Thank you, sir.
In reading this, it kind of lays out that the health officer is going to be doing these inspections and then taking these steps and so forth. It doesn't say anything in here, and of course you didn't even realize at the time, I don't guess, do these matters come before this new advisory board that has been created, and if so, at what point in that would it follow? Did I just misread that? It is in there?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
My apologies.
Yeah, but it's in there. It is brought before the board after the complaints are made.
That's
Yeah.
the advisory board, not the city council.
Yeah, advisory board.
Okay.
And then if his findings concur with their findings, then he or she is liable to continue.
Is this gonna be like the weed section, 13-108? Is this gonna be like when you're driving through and see it, or just like we did in our junk, or abandoned cars? Is that like backyard stuff that we can't see? Is that gonna be enforced, or how's that working? I just wanted to know. What's the clarification?
As far as I know, it's just if it's been complained on. Yeah, so if somebody submits a complaint form like they would with a vehicle, then that's when the health officer goes to see if it's actually in compliance or against what the code says. What the health officer says.
We want that.
So I think, these are the proposals, like I said, we'll have time to, look at them. You can vote on it tonight, you take your time, you'll have a month before we're back in action for the second reading. And if any changes that you see with the proposal or questions, you can write that on there and then bring it back, for the second reading. With any amendments you'd like to see done to it. I think that's the best way to do it, instead of trying to iron every bit of it out tonight.
I just have one more. Councilman Dodson, the intent of the new advisory committee is to hear all complaints for any of the property maintenance codes, including yours.
Thank you.
I have a question on the.
So,
Oh, Barbie Roberts and Vision Livingston. The copy that she made for you all, does it have in there about the property maintenance advisory board? Because we revised it at one point, and I want to be sure you have the right copy. It doesn't have it?
Do you know what section, do you know what section that's in and where it is, and we can point to it specifically?
It's it's on the second page, number 2, and it's the first couple of sentences there.
Is that the only material change, is that language
That's the
about
only thing I think that we
board?
can change that would add to that.
Yeah, okay.
And I wanted to give you all this too. This is I just made a little timeline of how it starts from when a problem is identified and how the steps can go with letters and appeals and all that. So it's just
Mr. Mayor, I continue to support all efforts, including this one, to, do what we need to do to help try to clean up our town. And I think this is just another piece of that puzzle. So I will make the motion that we accept on first reading this proposed ordinance with the understanding that upon further discussion, there could be additional changes.
Motion made by Alderman Kelly Coleman to accept the proposed maintenance ordinance and pass it on first reading tonight. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second it if it's not a violation for me being on that advisory board.
I'll second it.
Vice Mayor Winningham will second the motion. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Any discussion?
I think when you look at the weed section, if we're gonna cut weeds, roadfront property, when you're sweeping the road, that's fine, but in the backyard, what are we doing?
Why don't you add that to the next reading, what your ideas are?
All right.
Alderman Spade, one of the beauties of sitting up this board, the property maintenance board, is that you have a filter there, so if there's an apparent violation that comes before the board can simply say, we don't think that's a big deal. This particular one even has two more filters, and that is that if you don't agree with the decision of the property maintenance board, you can appeal to this board, and if you don't like the decision of this board, you can appeal to the judiciary. So I think there's multiple opportunities to have reasonable eyes look at situations.
Thanks.
So we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay. Roll call vote, Ms. Phillips.
Vice Mayor Winningham,
Yes.
Alderman Coleman,
Yes.
Alderman Dishman,
No.
Alderman Dodson,
Yes.
Alderman Langford,
No.
Alderman Speck,
Yes.
motion passed.
Motion passed. So we will have a public hearing on this, 5:30, first Monday of March. Should be March 4th, I believe. Yes, March the 4th. All right. So the next item is item number 4, bids on the Preston Street sidewalks. Got copies here. This was done late Friday, so I didn't get to get them out in the agenda. So, Mr. Ray Evans, you have paperwork, right?
No, sir. So recall that this project is being funded 100% by diabetes grant. This is our last year of the full-year program with the diabetes grant. It's a 100% reimbursable program where the city pays the initial cost and then immediately invoices for reimbursement under the diabetes grant. So this project will construct a sidewalk from the housing project on Preston Street along Preston Street to 111 on the right-hand side as you're coming from the housing project. The city has already done what I would call the base work, getting drainage situation taken care of, getting some base stone down where the sidewalks will go. These bids are for labor only. The city will also pay for the concrete and then get reimbursed. There were 2 bids received for the work. One from Bob Woosley and the other from Cumberland Concrete and Construction. Mr. Woosley's bid was a little bit over $3,000 lower than Cumberland Concrete and Construction, and we would recommend that you approve the contract that Mr. Woosley proceed forward with that project.
So, thank you, Mr. Evans. Low bid, as he said, is total bid, Mr. Woosley, $22,755. That is a low bid.
Make a motion, we go, local bid,
Motion made by Alderman David Langford,
I'll second it.
second by Alderman Dishman. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Ms. Phillips.
Alderman Coleman,
Yes.
Alderman Dishman,
Yes.
Alderman Dodson,
Yes.
Alderman Langford,
Yes.
Alderman Speck,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Winningham,
Yes.
motion passed.
Motion passed. Item number 5 is the ordinance 2019-2-1 rezoning the Hicks property on Robert Street. There, Sims.
Yes, this is Chris Hicks' property, the old Roberts Cafe building and property. He came before the planning commission and requested it to be rezoned to R1, a single-family residential district. The planning commission did approve this request, and they recommend to the mayor and the board that you change zoning to R1, single family.
Make a motion, we do this, since he's requested it, needs to be approved by the planning commission.
Motion made by Alderman Ronald Dishman,
Second.
second by Alderman Langford. Any discussion? All for the motion, let them know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion passed. For reference only, we have a letter here from TDOT State of Tennessee. Pleased to inform you that Town of Livingston multimodal access proposal was selected for funding in the amount of $739,162.70. You will soon receive a contract from TDOT that outlines the terms of the grant agreement. After receiving fully executed contract, you will receive notice to proceed. You should not begin any work on your project until you receive the appropriate notice. Again, congratulations on the selection of the 2019 multimodal access project application, and we thank you for your commitment of providing multimodal transportation choices and connections in your community. I think this is what Mr. Evans talked about earlier. If you have any questions, that's just for reference only. If you have any questions, we can answer them at this time. If not, is there any questions on that? If not, we move on to item number 7. This is a sale of surplus property on gov deals by the Livingston Police Department Chief Greg Etheridge. Need a copy, Greg, or you
Only if you need me to go over in particular.
No. So if you have any questions for the chief, that was in your packets and you took a look at it. Anyone got any questions for Chief Greg Etheridge?
This stuff we're selling, is it pretty good stuff? Does it run and work?
Some does, some does not. It's a combination of things we've had since 2012 up to 2017. As I noted in the letter, it's not all gonna be done at once. There's some things I'm still using as a project, but some of it's gonna cost more to maintain that we would have to expend other funds that I should be able to find replacements for down the road if I need it.
Mayor, does any of our other supervisors look to see if they can use any of it before we put it on the market?
I have not shared it with them, but now I don't know.
I know this has a backhoe on there, and maybe a loader, a dump truck, and some stuff, and so. The Hummers, I mean, I don't think it
Right.
could be used, but I mean, I just wondered the equipment,
Yeah,
instead of us having to go buy.
Chief, you know the equipment that we
Wally and
use.
I talked about the dump truck and the front end loader.
Anything you use, Wally?
No, that dump truck's gonna make a whole lot of work now.
We've still been able to use it for some small projects, much like backhoe. Rocky managed to get it going for what we're gonna do. And that's why I said there'll still be a little bit of stuff done with that, but
Okay, any more questions for the chief?
Greg, the Humvees, I know it's about 6. Are those still in fairly good condition that they can be?
some of them are, if you know how to work on one, you probably can. The stipulation on on those vehicles, they can't leave the country. So, the buyer has to certify. Chief, just out of curiosity, do you keep any kind of maintenance records on each of these pieces of equipment with detailed costs of what it costs you to maintain them over the years? Only the initial upfront cost that I would actually know, because we'll come in, we'll get it operational out of the drug fund, but maintenance would know more about what individual items will cost. I do not know. But is there any tracking of expenses by piece of equipment? Does anybody know that? Only from what general maintenance would do at the garage on certain pieces of equipment. Some of the stuff we just try to do it ourselves, and those things I would know in terms of like a part or something like that I would order for it. Yes, sir. So at our maintenance, do we track costs by equipment?
So Kelly, yes, if a piece of equipment goes in there, it is charged to that department. There is a PO given for the part, and Ms. Phyllis goes through and codes them on that department, so we can tell how much that we have spent on a particular piece of equipment.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions for the chief, need a motion to accept or not.
I make a motion to consider.
Motion made by Alderman Chris Speck,
Second.
second by Alderman Kelly Coleman for the sale of surplus property on Gov Deals for the police department. Motion and second, any discussion? Roll call vote, Ms. Phillips.
Alderman Dishman,
Yes.
Alderman Dodson,
Yes.
Alderman Hackford,
Yes.
Alderman Spett,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Alderman Coleman,
Yes.
motion passed.
Motion passed. Thank you, chief. Okay, next, Central Park, there's a Central Park alcohol resolution. Ray Evans.
Mr. Mayor and board members, if I may, I'm going to discuss item number 8 and item number 9 at the same time, since they are sort of hand in hand related. As we expected that we would eventually have, we have a request to have an event in Central Park and have alcoholic beverages served and consumed within the confines of the park. And we told the board when we were establishing the policies for Central Park, especially the section on special events, that in the case that we had such, we would bring an ordinance back to this body for approval. we noted that in 2011, Copeland had exactly the same situation where there was requests for using Dogwood Park for various events where alcoholic beverages would be served and consumed. This is not for sale. It's to be specifically not for sale. It's where the beverages are being furnished and controlled and such. So what you have before you is first an ordinance, and then secondly a resolution. Both are modeled after the City of Copeland's ordinance and resolution. That the resolution first allows the serving and consumption of beer within Central Park, subject to all sorts of regulations. The applicant will have to meet all the requirements that we have for on-premises beer sale that are mentioned up in item number 2 in this, or chapter 2 in the same code. They have to meet all the regulations of Tennessee Code Annotated 57-4-102, just as if there were a restaurant or anywhere else. But in this case, it is a one-time activity that can actually be, the event can actually be up to 3 days. It also allows wine to be served and consumed under certain conditions. And that is that specific sections of the Tennessee Code Annotated are modified to define Central Park as what's called an urban park center. And in the Tennessee Code Annotated, there are probably 25 definitions of what an urban park center are, and they're all focused on someone's desire to have a specific location included in that definition. So in that case, you have to have the Tennessee Code Annotated modified to define Central Park as an urban park center. And note that at the very end, it also says that if you're serving wine, you have to make application to the State Alcoholic Beverage Commission under their special occasions permit and go through that whole process with them as well. All the requirements of the state of Tennessee in regard to consumption, serving and consumption of both beer and alcohol would be included. The ordinance, that's the ordinance. The resolution is a resolution asking the Tennessee General Assembly to make the modifications to Section 57-4-102 of the Tennessee Code Annotated to include an additional definition of what an urban center is. And in this case, we've said that it is a center owned, operated, or leased by a municipality or a county government or any agency or commission thereof, has an outdoor fixed structure stage utilized as a performance venue, provides or leases facilities for concerts, plays, programs, cultural, civic, and educational interest, and that the facility is located in any municipality that is authorized for the sale of alcoholic beverage consumption on premises in accordance with Tennessee Code Annotated 57-3-06, and that the municipality has a population not less than 4,000 nor more than 5,000 in accordance with the 2010 census. So that's what sort of makes it very specific to, those 4 things makes it very specific to our community and specifically to Central Park. So I would ask that 2 things, that you take action to approve the ordinance that modifies Title 8, Title Alcoholic Beverages, by adding Chapter 3 special events, and then further I would ask that you move to approve the resolution that is the next item on your agenda.
Thank you, Ray. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Evans?
I got a question. These special events that we're gonna have down here, are they gonna charge admissions or gonna be free?
It's up to the sponsors.
It's up to the sponsors.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if I read that ordinance right, the only thing we get out of that's $100 permit, is that right?
We get a $100 permit. We get a permit direct fee for any special event, whether it's serving.
But that's all we'll get out of this. And we'll provide the lighting, we'll provide the water, we'll provide the garbage, the cleanup, the whole 9 yards.
What I was trying to explain to you. For any special event, whether alcoholic beverage is being served or not, there's a certain fee that has to be paid. And I think the fee is $350, $400 plus $50 per hour for the cost of the audio-visual technician. So we get that regardless of whether, if you're serving water. In addition to that, you get these additional fees if you're serving alcoholic beverages.
What additional fees are you talking about now? I didn't hear the $100?
Yes. Correct.
You get $100, you get served alcohol.
Correct. But you've also, by the definition of a special event, you also have,
We don't get no gate fee or nothing like that.
If we wanted to hold our own event, we could charge a fee, David.
That's correct. But you do, again, you do get a fee just for the special event, exclusive of what you said in this ordinance.
Mr. Evans, there's and David, there's the rental agreement for the Central Park for special occasions has all of those fees detailed in that agreement.
That's all detailed in this agreement, and it has all been presented and passed by this board.
And it was all passed by this board, and it's like, I don't know, $400 or $500 a day, plus all these extras. And I think this even says that the sponsor in this type of event would be responsible for covering law enforcement and, all those other expenses.
In all, the language in there, too, on the permit, there's holds the city harmless from a liability standpoint, and it indemnifies the city and this board as well.
I have a question, Ray, on the resolution. When the city of Cookville went in 2011 and obtained their resolution from the legislature, right?
Yeah.
They had to get CCA
Correct.
a waiver to be named an urban park center, right?
Correct.
Okay, and that's what we're trying to do?
Yes, sir.
And this Kathy McLean, who is still the city clerk, I think has verified that with a copy of the resolution in the city of Cookville did. So did we mirror ours basically after theirs?
Yes.
I'm just curious, I know that Cookville has wine on the west side. They have different events in Dogwood Park where they serve wine. Have you heard of any groups or special events that have approached us that would want to do something similar?
Yes, so we actually have an event that is proposed for I think the first or second week in May this year that has asked us to allow alcoholic beverages in the park.
Would it be important to know what that is at this point or not?
Be happy to tell you, it's the Chamber of Commerce New Residents Appreciation Day.
Also, Kelly, I think it's fitting to tell you that we have been approached by other communities about wine on the west side, as they do in Putnam County. Also, WCTE has a fundraiser that has Blues and Brews. So just
Blues and Brews.
Yeah. So those items have been, or those folks have approached the downtown revitalization and Central Park.
Mm-hmm.
Ray, I know that you mentioned Dogwood Park. Did they get grants and stuff to build Dogwood Park like we did Central Park? That's got things for children and stuff involved. And will this be a violation of some of the grants that we took money in on?
I can't answer if Cookville got any grants for Dogwood Park, but I can tell you that there will not be any violation of any grants that we've received. And also understand these special events are whole park events, so it's sort of fence to fence to fence. So it's not as if one group's going to be having a party up here and there's going to be other non-special event activities going on in the park on the same day, or during that same time of year.
I just have a comment. The way I understand Cookville works theirs is they segregate the children's areas, with temporary fencing, so that there's not a commingling of, you know, an adult themed event, or with alcohol. They don't want their children interacting, I guess, and so they technically install some type of barrier to divide the sections, so that maybe in our park, we could do something similar, so that the back half of the park is still open for the playground. I'm not sure.
I attended the Blues and Brews event this last year in Cookville, and security was phenomenal. The screening you went through to get your colored tag on your arm to show that you were 21 and therefore be able to be served beer. But they had probably 25 or 30 craft breweries that were set up. They had food vendors as well, and then they had entertainment in their amphitheater area that went on for 4, 5, 6 hours, I guess you know.
I realize this is a very sensitive issue because it involves alcohol. I think it's important also to recognize that this town has evolved, I think, over the years, and just recently, this year, passed packaged liquor store. We have liquor by the drink in restaurants. You know, I'm not sure what the answer to this particular issue is, but I think that is important to remember that the majority of the citizens of this town did vote to allow you to buy alcohol in a restaurant and to buy it at a package store. So I just make that point of reference.
Thank you, Alderman Coleman. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Any more questions for Mr. Evans?
Well, I'm totally against it because of cleaning parks for kids and adults and things, and we've got a restaurant right across the street that serves everything. We've got a country club that serves whatever they want to serve. They have events at the Chamber of Commerce. Next thing you know, we're going to see when they have adult softball games, they're going to want to sell beer at the city ballpark if they can get it passed. So I'm totally against it.
Thank you, Alderman Bishop.
Mr.
Okay.
Evans, are you aware, do they sell alcohol at the city baseball parks in Cookville?
These ordinances are for the serving and consumption, not for the sale. So in essence, the selling of the beverages is prohibited.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll do these one at a time. Resolution requesting the Tennessee General Assembly amend TCA section 57-4-102 to allow the sale of alcohol beverages in Central Park. That's the resolution. Need a motion?
Motion approved.
Motion made by Ken Dodson, second by Alderman Chris Speck. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Ms. Phillips.
Alderman Dodson,
Yes.
Alderman Actor,
No.
Alderman Speck,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Alderman Coleman,
Yes.
Alderman Dishman,
No.
motion passed.
Motion passes 4-2. Ordinance amending title, an ordinance amending the Livingston Municipal Code 8, alcoholic beverages to allow consumption of alcohol beverages in Central Park and other public locations. This is what Mr. Evans spoke on as well. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Ken Dodson, second Vice Mayor Wayne Hammond. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Ms. Phillips.
Alderman Langford,
No.
Alderman Speck,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Alderman Coleman,
Yes.
Alderman Dishman,
No.
Alderman Dodson,
Yes.
motion passed.
Motion passed. So we'll have on this ordinance, we'll have a second reading on that, March the 4th at 5:30 here at City Hall. Next item is Item number 10 that was added, Oakland Park property sales, Mr. Darius Sims.
Yes. We had the second auction on the property, located on Oakland Park. This time we had about 4 prospective bidders. We had 2 participating bidders.
Excuse me, sir, but remind me where Oakland Park is.
It's, it ends on 7th Street. If you go up, it stops at 7th Street. It's about the 1st Street over from church, running north and south.
So, yeah, so,
Right,
so,
right, right.
yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
So if you remember, all council, that this was a house that was raided by the Livingston Police Department, and there was meth in it, and so we had to go by the state guidelines to clean the home up, and had someone to come in to clean it up, and then haul the material to a proper state site. And so we have all the paperwork on that as well. As far as the lien holders gave the property to the city, and in return, the city cleaned it up and held a public auction. There's
Mr. Ricardo Rodriguez was the successful bidder at the day of the auction. He bid $6,300. So if you all want to sell it for that amount, we need approval from you all to sell it.
Make a motion, we accept the $6,300.
motion made by Alderman Langford. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion. I have a question. What did it cost us to dispose of that, the property disposal?
So we got a second by Alderman Dishman, and the question is, what did we start to bid at, Darius? Because we started to bid at a certain price.
We started the bid at 52, 55, 5,500.
And that's what we had in.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you.
So there's a motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion? All, roll call vote, Ms. Phyllis.
Alderman Spector.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Williams.
Yes.
Alderman Coleman.
Yes.
Alderman Dishman.
Yes.
Alderman Dodson.
Yes.
Alderman Langford.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Motion passed. No other business here with the city. Need a motion to adjourn.
I just have one other, real quick.
Okay.
I know this was laid on the copy of the June 30, 18 budget, or, excuse me, audit was laying in front of us tonight. So I was just
Yeah, that's-
scanning through it, but I just wanted to make a point that it's before us to look back, and to see where all our income expenses are and our balance sheet. So happy reading, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. If no other business, need a motion to
Coach,
adjourn.
wait just a second. I didn't have nothing to add to the agenda, but I've got a couple of questions.
All right?
Mike, thank you for being here tonight. I got a question. I was, had a call. The trustees that come down to City Park and work when you're down there, those are not sex offenders or nothing like that?
No,
That's around
I don't have a crew, and right now I'm working, and, I've got one that helps me, does a good job. They wouldn't come out if they were sex offenders or anything like that.
Thanks, I just wanted to clarify that, general.
That's right. No other business, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made, Ken Johnson, second by Vice Mayor Willingham.